How about you start by sharing a bit of your performance history?
Sure. Well, obviously the biggest, most recent thing that I've done has been The Wizard of Oz, where I played Dorothy. I've done a couple of concerts, recent things where I've done some musical directing, and that's been a really big opener for me, because normally, even though I've done a lot of music theory base and worked as like tutoring and things like that, I've not been on that big space before, and that's been really interesting and fun. I performed overseas as Cinderella in 2013, which was probably one of the highlights of my career so far. Apart from that, just bits and bobs over the years, a lot of performing at Christmas concerts and singing at events and all those sorts of fun things.
So do you see yourself mainly as a singer or...
That's actually really funny to ask. It maybe a little now. No, not really. I like to think that I act through my singing. I think anyone who's a singer should. I don't like separating those terms. I think to be a good actor, you can be in any sort of field of performance, but that's where I started, acting. Acting was my first sort of thing. And I did that through primary school. I did all the Eisteddfods, and I was out at Ipswich every year. I remember that, and that was fun. And then I sort of got into singing, and funnily enough, there was a big changeover at the time with one of my teachers, because she wasn't a singing teacher and sort of didn't want to focus in that area. So, yeah.
How early did you start? Like, what's your earliest performance memory?
My earliest, that's actually the other day I was going through some old videos, and I found me in grade 1 in the Talent Quest doing Easter Bonnet from Easter Parade. So Judy Garland's song from Easter Parade.
Oh,
and that was yes, that's right. Starting with the big stuff, with all these wonderful my Easter bonnet, and yeah. So that would be my first musical theatre performance, I suppose. But I've always done stuff. Our family did lots of little things. For a while, my mum and my dad were helping with some fundraising stuff, and we did visits to schools and parties and stuff for a little while in primary school, which was
so
kind
are
of
they
fun.
Performers as well?
Not really. No, they're both in different fields. My brother's in a different field, but I think they're all quite creative. And I think when you've got that spark of creativity, that lends itself to the performing arts, and I think that's where I sort of found that. I enjoyed telling stories. So were you the one that pushed it through, that this is what I want to do, Mum, I want to get into this, or did they encourage you? I think it was more me. I think it was more what I wanted to do. I know my mum had a lot of trouble finding somewhere that would allow it when I was in sort of that age group of 6 to 8, when I was really interested in it. I think these days it's a lot easier to find places that will nurture that in a child. At the time it was sort of, oh no, she's too young, wait till she's 10, 11, 12 and then we'll get back to it. But she really worked for it, because she knew that's what I wanted. That said, I remember the year I stopped doing the Eisteddfods, actually, because it was about 2 weeks before and I didn't feel ready for it. And I said, Mum, I don't want to do this. We'd already put in the money for it, and she sort of said, okay, if that's not what you want to do, are you sure? And I said, yes, I'm sure, and we didn't do it. So she's never pushed me to do anything that I didn't want to do, and they've always been 100% behind me, no matter what it was that I wanted to be involved with.
So at the launch of your new website, which is amywinner.com, I've noticed you've got a number of blog posts there that are really interesting and informative.
Yes. So thank you very much.
Within what you do in that website, there's obviously a part of you that wants to encourage and equip others as well. Is that be right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I think I've always loved teaching in lots of different areas. And I think that within community theatre, much like what you're doing, I suppose, is there isn't necessarily a big avenue to give that information to people to help them while they're sort of on their track. And I know it wasn't necessarily available to me when I got started, and I'd like that to be there for other people. So that's why I've started the website. That's why I've got all those little blog entries and things like that, and people can interact with that. They can leave comments, they can ask questions, to give something that isn't necessarily out there already.
No, it's specific to community theatre that it's...
Pretty much. I mean, mine isn't as zoned in there as I suppose what this is. It's musical theatre in general, but my experience is within community theatre mainly. So I'm not going to go talking about something that I don't know what I'm talking about. So I'll give a basis on things that I know and where I can give information from. So I have a big history in music theory. I've done more than just singing. I did a lot of music in school. I've got obviously all my acting. I've got the performances that I've done. So,
and it's great, isn't it? It's really helpful because people know, well, I'm normal. You know, Amy's experienced this before, and this is how she, you know, got through it or did it. This, you know, and with your credibility as a performer, to be able to share that information means they have, as you say, got a resource that they can learn from. And as community theatre performers, we can, you know, we don't have to pick our way through all that professional stuff that's out there that doesn't really apply to us. Like,
yeah,
you know,
and I think it's nice, like you say, to see someone who's in that space with you. I think there's nothing worse than walking into a room and going, oh, these people are scary. You know, they all know more than I do, or I should. It's the worst thing in an audition room. You suddenly feel like nothing and you can't give your best. So I think to see other people that are on that level, who've done those things and are still doing those things, that's why I think I can help people with those blogs and that information, because I'm in there with them. We're all in it together. You know?
Great. It's great to see. So, speaking of auditions, do you get nervous doing auditions?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, that's my worst.
How do you cope with it?
How do I cope with auditions? You have to be prepared. If you're not prepared for an audition, that's the end of it. To the extent of being prepared enough to have an idea of what they might ask you, to be ready for your songs being out of order, or for the pianist doing it too slow or too fast. Sometimes I will actually practice it too slow and too fast to be ready for that. Yeah, but that's where I'm the most nervous. Auditions are horrible. I hate auditions. Put me on a stage any day.
So have you ever had a moment that you've lost it on stage where things have gone very wrong?
On stage? Well, years and years of being on stage, you have all the wardrobe malfunctions and things like that. I'm pretty sure I've run on with a zip sort of half undone, and you got to. But the best one, I think, recently, that would have been in The Wizard of Oz, and it was a tech run, so I don't know if it counts. But we hadn't run it with the sets. We hadn't run it with everything on there yet. We hadn't had a chance. But we had a few people watching, and we had to go because we were timing the cyclone scene, because it was that first cyclone scene, and it had to be exactly to time. So I ran on, and I was in full character, and I was right in the moment, and I had a dog in one hand and a basket in the other, and I come up to the door, and I'm pulling on the thing like mad, and I pull it right off its hinges. Because you're meant to push it.
Dorothy is strong.
Yeah, I had no idea that you're supposed to push this door, and then they had to bring in the guy to refix it and nail the thing back in before we could actually do the show.
We put ourselves through a lot, don't we? It makes us strong. Do you find that what you've learnt in theatre has helped you in your everyday life as well?
I think so. I feel like what I've learned in theatre, what I've learned as a performer, is a part of everything that I do, really. Even in my career outside, it's being able to relate to people. It's being able to have that empathy for what someone else is feeling. I think being able to recognise the people around you and the situations that they've been in is important to understanding them in their lives. So I think being an actor doesn't have to be restricted to being a character. And that doesn't mean you're putting on a show either. I think it's more about responding to another person and understanding where they're coming from.
So have you got, in your rehearsal process, can you think of, or even in a performance, a moment where a lesson you've been learning has clicked suddenly, that suddenly everything makes sense?
Right.
Maybe a direction you've been given that you've struggled with, but suddenly things make sense to you?
I'm trying to think of something now. I don't know. I think sometimes when you find your character, you will then click into that space. There was a time that I was playing Audrey in Little Shop of Horrors, and there was, I think it was a line, something in there that she was supposed to say, and I could never quite connect with it when I was reading it on my own, because it didn't feel like something that she would think. And getting a response from the actor that I had on the stage with me and going, and it just came naturally, because that's obviously what she would say. And it was like, oh yeah, okay, I understand it now. I think if you can get to that space, which I would love to say I'm fully in, but I know I'm not. If you can get to that space where it doesn't matter what anyone else has to say, that's probably the best space that you can be in. You can't be letting people hold you down with what they expect of you. I think I saw Julie Andrews when she was here a couple of years ago, and she spoke about how when she first started out, that her whole audience seemed like someone was sort of judging her, and that was a real big thing for her, and that was a thing for me at one point too, that I sort of felt like, oh my god, I don't want to do the wrong thing by them, which is funny. It sort of hit halfway through. I was fine for years and years and years, whatever, and then I guess I hit this point and I went, oh my god, I can't do this wrong. I have to show them that I'm good at what I'm doing, and I have to be good enough. You have to get past that, I think, and maybe that's a phase that everyone goes through. Maybe you start with being confident, and then you sort of realise how much you have to learn, and then you start to go, oh god, what now? I have to be better, but you have to accept at some point that what you are is good. You've achieved something so far, and if you don't at least believe in that, you'll never get to there.
So would you say that allowing that fear to overwhelm you negatively affects your ability to perform, create a character? It sort of holds you back from letting everything go?
Yeah. Oh, if you let that fear overwhelm you, you'll never completely get into your character, because you're stuck as you.
Yeah.
You're stuck as this scared person, and this character that you want to create, you can't reach them. You can't reach out to them because they're feeling your feelings. It's it's meant to be the other way around.
So do you get to the theatre yourself much as an audience member?
I try to.
It's hard,
I really do try to.